guys, what's up? It's Shelly. In today's video, we are going to be talking about the differences between 3 turns and brackets. So, there's a lot of similarities with these, but there's also differences with these 2 turns as well. We typically learn the 3 turn first, and then it usually is followed by the bracket. And then from there we get into our counters and our rockers. Just to let you all know, I am doing videos breaking down the counters and the rockers. I think my next video will be more of a breakdown between what the differences are, just so that way when we dive into the videos and start to explain them, you already know what those differences are. I will be getting to those. Make sure you keep your eyes peeled. I am doing Zoom lessons on Zoom, so if you are interested in having either a Zoom lesson or consultation on needing help with a certain element, etc., feel free to email me at the email address below in the description. Alright, we're going to go ahead and we're going to talk about the bracket and the 3 turn. And before we even get into the similarities or differences, I just kind of want you guys to take a look at what they look like when we do them on the ice. So every turn, basically every step you take on the ice, even jumps, you can see the tracing of that jump or the turn or even the spin on the ice. So this is what a 3 turn and a bracket look like on the ice. As you can see, I have circles there and the turn on the circle and the turn by itself. The main difference, as you can tell, is the point. So for the 3 turn, our point is pointing into the circle, and for the bracket, our point is pointing outside of that circle. So that's going to be very important, knowing the differences between the inside of the circle and the outside of the circle. I think it's pretty self-explanatory. You can kind of see in the 3 turn, the point is literally pointing into the center of the circle, whereas the bracket, the point is literally pointing outside of the circle. So this is super important information to know, and it will really help you understand what those differences and similarities are. So there are going to be 4 different similarities that we're going to talk about with the 3 turn and the bracket. The first thing that they both have in common is they are both executed on a circle. What that means is that when we do the full turn, whether the bracket or the 3 turn, the turn stays on one circle. You don't see part of the turn going onto another circle or anything like that. Everything, the entrance edge and the exit edge, are on the same low. That is one of the main similarities that we have with this 3 turn and bracket. Our next similarity is that the edge going into the turn is going to be opposite of the edge coming out of the turn. What that means is, for example, if we're going to be doing a forward outside 3 turn, we are going to be entering on a forward outside edge, and we're going to be exiting on a back inside edge. Same thing with backwards. We're going to do a back outside 3 turn. We're going to enter on a back outside edge and exit in a forward inside edge. So not only are the edges flipped, but even the direction is flipped on these 3 turns. Same thing with bracket. You're going to do a forward outside bracket. Your exit is going to be on a back inside edge. So you enter on that forward outside edge and you exit after the turn on a back inside edge. So it doesn't matter whether it's forward or backwards, you're always going to have that opposite edge and opposite direction thing going on before and after the turn, whether it's the 3 turn or the bracket. The next similarity is our knee bend, the rise and fall of our knee. When we do our 3 turn, we sink down into our knee during that initial edge, and during the turn, we flip our hips 180 degrees. We rise up in our knee a little bit to do that turn, and then we sink right back down. So we have the down, up, down motion. It's the same exact motion when we do the bracket. And of course, just like the 3 turn and the bracket, both of them, we have to flip our hips. Basically, the turn itself, the mechanics of these turns are the same. So the rise and the fall of the knee, you always rise up a bit from your knee when you're doing the turn. The next similarity that we have is that if we're doing forward 3 turns or forward brackets, we're turning on the rocker of our blade. The area that you execute the turn on your blade is the same, whether it's a forward 3 turn or a forward bracket. So going forwards, it's all the rocker. When you're doing backward 3 turns or backward rockers, it's going to be the same, whereas you're going up to the heel of the blade to execute the turn. So that's where we have another similarity. If you're doing forwards with 3-turn bracket, rock up to the ball of the foot or the rocker. If you're doing a backwards 3-turn or a backwards bracket, you rock up to the heel. And here is our last similarity that we're going to go over. The forward and backward mechanics are reversed. So that might be a little confusing. When I say it, you're like, what do you mean? Well, what I mean is that when we're doing a forward 3-turn, we're going to turn facing inside the circle. And let's say if we're doing a backwards 3-turn, we're going to face outside the circle. So when we do a forward 3-turn, we're going to face inside the circle for the turn. When we do a backwards 3-turn, we're going to face outside of the circle for the turn. So with the bracket, we have the same kind of situation there where it's going to be an opposite. And what I mean by opposite is that the way you execute the forward and the way you turn on the forward is going to be different from the backward. It's the same thing with the bracket. So if you're doing a forward bracket, you turn facing outside of the circle. If you are doing a backwards bracket, you're going to turn facing inside of the circle. So I know that's kind of confusing, and it's like, wait, you said it was a similarity. The similarity is the whole idea that both of them flip the mechanics, whether you're going forward or backward. So that's where we get to that similarity. So those are the similarities of these brackets and the 3 turns. We're going to go ahead and we're going to talk about the differences between the two. When it comes down to the differences, they all kind of blend together in a way. It's all about what the best way is for you to understand it. So I'm going to kind of explain it in terms of the direction we turn, where the arms face when we're doing these turns. The main difference between the 3-turn and the bracket. When you are doing a forwards 3-turn versus a forwards bracket, the direction that you turn is going to be different. So what that means is that when we're doing a forward 3-turn, we're going to turn facing into the circle. And when we do a forward bracket, we are going to actually turn facing outside of the circle. So that's a very important thing to note, because that's going to be the main thing that you need to pay attention to when it comes down to working on these 3 turns and brackets, especially if you're brand new to brackets, like paying attention to that, because that's how you're going to notice, okay, did I do a bracket versus a 3-turn, etc. It's very important that you look at your tracing when you're practicing these. That way you can kind of know, hey, does that look like a 3-turn? Does that look like a bracket? We're going to kind of bring it into another step now to kind of explain it. And we're going to talk about the arm position. So when we are doing a forward 3-turn, our arms are going to be facing the direction of our turn. So when I do my 3-turn, I'm facing inside the circle and I'm turning inside the circle. So my arms are going to face inside the circle. So my shoulders and my arms are going to face inside that circle, and I'm literally going to almost think about like hugging the circles. If you're doing this on one of the big circles in the rink that has a dot in the middle of the circle, it's perfect, because then you're just going to stare at that dot as you're doing your 3-turn. That ensures that your body, your shoulders, your hips, as you're doing the forward 3-turn, are facing inside the circle. An arm should also be facing inside the circle as well. Now, if you are doing a bracket on one of those circles, it's going to be very important that your arms are facing outside of the circle, because when you turn, you don't want to be looking at the inside dot, you want to be looking at the outside dot. So that's where the arms come into this difference. That was the forward 3-turn and bracket. Let's talk about the backward 3-turn and bracket. So when you do your backwards 3-turn, this is also a difference, but we kind of mentioned this in a similarity. When you do your backward 3-turn, your arms, even though your turn is facing inside the circle, your arms are going to be facing outside of the circle. Your arms are going to be facing outside the circle so you can complete the turn. Now, when you're doing a backwards bracket, your arms are going to be facing inside the circle, even though the point will be still facing outside of the circle. So that's where it gets a little confusing and hairy. Another way to explain that is the natural rotation. So when we are doing a 3-turn, a bracket, even a counter and a rocker, we have a natural rotation that happens with our body. So if we weren't checking our body and we were just letting our body kind of go and skate on an edge, there's like a natural rotation that happens. So when you are on an edge, an outside edge, an inside edge, your body naturally wants to start to rotate. Now, when you do the 3-turn, whether it's forward or backward, your body is going to turn into that natural rotation. So if you feel like turning clockwise because you are going clockwise on the circle, and you start to turn into the circle because that's the way you're going, then you naturally go with the flow of that rotation. Now, with a bracket, it's opposite. So if you naturally feel like you're rotating into the circle, your goal for the bracket is to check your body and go against that natural edge rotation. For some of you, that might be a little confusing, but I want you to just maybe try doing some 1-foot glides on a circle, literally glide, and I want you to see which way your body wants to rotate, what it naturally starts to do. I would say that's one of the, if you are a skater that goes by the feel of things, that might be the best way for you to understand the differences and feel the differences between the 3-turn and the bracket. Now, if you are one of those skaters and you're like, I don't really go by feel, I need to know what it looks like, I need to know, what to do, then you're definitely going to want to be taking a look at your tracings when you're doing the brackets and the 3-turns on ice. Those are the differences and the similarities between the 3-turns and the brackets. If you notice, I kind of broke it down between like forward 3-turns and brackets and backward 3-turns and brackets, just because they're different from each other. So like forward 3-turn and the backward 3-turn are pretty much opposites as to the direction of the turn. Same thing with the bracket. So if you looked at everything that we just went over, there's really not a lot of differences. If anything, there's a lot of similarities, which is really cool. But with a lot of similarities and a lesser amount of differences comes a little bit more confusion sometimes. Next video is going to be talking about the differences between counters and rockers. You're going to kind of see some similarities or hear some similarities between the counters, rockers, and the brackets and 3-turns. I will be having a video on counters and a video on rockers explaining how to do them. So keep your eyes peeled for those. Until next time, I hope you guys are having a great time on the ice. Skate great, have fun, and I'll see you in the next video. Bye guys.